Over the last few decades, China has gone through one of the most incredible transformations in, well, all of human history. But what's the engine behind all of it? Today, we're going to break down a really fascinating analysis that offers a clear and, yeah, for some, a pretty controversial answer. So let's dive right in. We're going to start with a number it's almost hard to wrap your head around. 800 million. According to the World Bank, that's how many people China has lifted out of extreme poverty. I mean, just think about that for a second. It's an absolutely astonishing achievement, no matter how you slice it. And this chart, wow, this really helps you see the economic powerhouse behind that change. Look at the raw numbers. Back in 2000, China's entire GDP was just over $1 trillion. Fast forward to today, and it's sitting at around 19 trillion. To put that into perspective, the US economy was 10 times bigger than China's in 2000. Now, it's only about 1.5 times bigger. The speed of that catch-up is it's completely unprecedented. So that's the big question, right? How? How on earth did a country that was one of the poorest in the world in 1949 become this economic superpower in just a couple of generations? The analysis we're digging into today offers a very, very specific answer to that. Because you see, according to this analysis, the story isn't just about GDP. It's not just about money. It's really about a fundamental shift in the quality of human life. Those economic numbers, as mind-boggling as they are just one piece of a much bigger and much more human puzzle. And this is a perfect example. This number shows a metric that a lot of people would argue is way more important than money. Time. How long you get to live. In 1949, the average life expectancy in China was just 35 years old. Today, it's shot up to over 79. That's right on par with many of the world's most developed countries, and it's actually higher than in the United States. You know, when China announced it had gotten rid of extreme poverty, its definition went way beyond just a simple income number. As the source we're looking at points out, for China, it meant making sure these basic things were guaranteed. Things like safe housing, clean water, and access to school and doctors for every single one of its 1.4 billion citizens. It's a really comprehensive idea of what it means to live a dignified life. Okay, so this brings us right to the heart of the argument in this analysis. It basically says that the engine, the thing driving this entire transformation, is China's unique version of socialism, where the Communist Party keeps a firm grip on the state and, crucially, on the main levers of the economy. The source splits China's modern story into two big chapters. But, and this is the key part, it says they are totally connected. First, you have the foundational period under Mao Zedong, and then you have the reform and opening up period that kicked off in 1978 and is still going today. The whole point is that you just can't understand the second part without understanding the first. So in those first 30 years or so, the analysis points out that China went through this gigantic social overhaul. We're talking about tearing down the old feudal system, giving land back to farmers, and ending centuries of absolutely brutal oppression against women. They launched huge campaigns to teach people to read and get them basic health care. This, the source argues, was the bedrock. This was the foundation that everything else was built on top of. And then the analysis draws this really sharp contrast. Think about the Soviet Union. When they started their reforms, perestroika, they basically handed over political power to a new capitalist class, and the whole state just fell apart. But China, they took a completely different road. Yeah, they brought in markets and foreign money, but the Communist Party made it crystal clear that they were staying in charge of politics and keeping control of the really important parts of the economy, like the banks, energy, and big industry. And honestly, this quote from the analyst Eric Lee, which is featured in the source material, just says it all, doesn't it? It's blunt, but it really gets to the core of the argument. At the end of the day, who's calling the shots? The state or private money? Okay, so this whole development story isn't just happening inside China's borders. The analysis argues that China's rise is fundamentally changing the entire world order, especially for countries in what we call the global south. Now, to get this, we've got to be clear on a key term: a multipolar world. According to this analysis, this doesn't just mean, a new Cold War or a new rivalry between big countries. It means the end of a world with just one single superpower. It's about creating a world where developing nations in Asia, Africa, and Latin America actually have a real voice and a real seat at the table. And according to the source, here's kind of how that works. First, China offers another option for trade and investment, one that doesn't come with all the political strings that are often attached by Western institutions. That, in turn, gives other countries the breathing room, the sovereignty, to go down their own path. And that leads to building new groups for cooperation.
amplifying their collective voice. All right, so this all leads to the grand finale of the analysis we're looking at, a really stark contrast. It basically frames the world we're in now as a choice between two totally different ways of doing things, two models that lead to two very different futures. Just take a look at this side by side. The source argues that China's state-led model lets it build these massive, long-term infrastructure projects that private companies who are just looking for a quick profit would never touch. It can tackle problems like homelessness, while those problems are still everywhere in the West. And it can become a world leader in green energy because, as the source puts it, there isn't a massive fossil fuel lobby that can just buy the government. You see, it all comes back to that one core question. Does the state tell the money what to do, or does the money tell the state what to do?
And so, we're left with this big question that the analysis poses. As the world faces these huge challenges, from climate change to massive inequality, the fact that a different way of doing things has emerged on such a huge scale, well, it's a powerful case study. The path China took is its own, for sure, but the questions it brings up about power, about priorities, about what progress even means, those are questions for all of us. What can we learn from these two very different paths? Now that's something to think about.